Thank you for joining us for Working Through the Word, a ministry of the Richmond Church of Christ. Let's join our pulpit minister, Mike Johnson, as he brings today's lesson.
The season of giving has already been alluded to. It begins around Thanksgiving and heads right on to the end of the year. The season of giving. But I have to admit, I'm a bit confused. I've become confused over the years because we call it the season of giving. But it almost sounds more like, to me, the season of getting. Because we spend so much time asking people, what do you want me to get you? We teach kids to make a list. Wait a minute. That sounds like a season of getting. Sometimes I'm a bit confused, but I understand it. And the season of giving sometimes, however, is not understood properly. And so today, I want us to think about what real giving is. What does it mean if I am going to be a real giver? If you'll open your Bibles to the text read in Acts chapter 10, you can be right there as we walk through something that will help us understand, hopefully, better what real giving is. And so while we are in a season of giving, or when we are in the rest of our lives, we want to practice real giving. And therefore we ask, what is that? How do we do it? What does that involve? In this text, what we find in Acts chapter 10, Peter has been called by God to go and see a man who, in fact, was a giver. He was one who prayed to God, and he gave gifts to the people who were the Jewish people, even though he was a Roman citizen. And therefore, in that situation, he was a seeker. He was one God was listening to because he was calling upon him. And God sent Peter over there to talk to Cornelius. And it was in the context of his message to the family of Cornelius that we find our context for the subject of giving. And I want you to think with me about three concepts that he brings out in this passage. Number one, that God is the example of one who is a real giver. And Jesus, in following this standard that God has set, Jesus showed us what it is like to be a real giver. I'm going to call him a do-gooder. And then I'll ask all of us, are we do-gooders? If we are, we will be real givers. Let's think about that concept for just a few minutes. Peter opens in his message and he alludes to or states that God is not playing favorites with anybody. God has a universal standard for life. It is a standard that if everybody would adopt, how much better would our personal lives be? How much better would our family lives be? How about our communities? How about the state? How about the nation or even the world? If we would adopt God's universal standard. What does God say? I'm not partial. I am not partial in my real giving. That's how Peter began the message. We learn from Romans 10 and verse number 12 that God is rich to all who call upon him. God is rich to them. God gives more even than they need. God gives us more than we need. God is rich toward everybody. He does not play favorites. In fact, in Luke chapter 6, it is, or in Matthew 5 that is, Jesus said of his Father, He sends His rain on the evil and on the good. He makes His sun to shine on the just and on the unjust. God is not playing favorites. He treats everybody with His benefits and with His gifts and the things that He wants for us. God has a standard. And in this standard, by doing what He does, He says, I'm not partial. I don't want you to be partial. I don't want you to play favorites. Now, I do know that He does say, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all. When we talk about real giving, we're talking about doing good. Real giving is doing good. Jesus one time addressed that in the Sermon on the Mount. And He talked about these people. He said, now you know how to give good gifts to your children, don't you? If they ask for an egg, you're going to give them a stone? If they ask for a fish, are you going to give them a snake? You know how to give good gifts to your children. Your Father knows really well. What is He saying? He is connecting the concept of real giving to doing good. In fact, can we not define real giving as doing good? God is one who gives real gifts, and His gifts are good. Every good and every perfect gift comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variableness nor a shadow cast by turning. James chapter 1, about verse 12. God gives good. So we can connect real giving and doing good. So if I want to know what real giving is, then I need to know what doing good is. This passage says that God is not partial, but He gives us then two words to describe or to define what His impartial doing good in real giving involves. Notice what He says. In every nation, whoever fears Him. Word number one, respect. Respect. And word number two, righteousness. In every nation, whoever fears Him and works righteousness is accepted by Him. God has this universal standard that He wants everybody to follow, not just as a command, but because this is the best way to live. And what does He say? Two things. I want you to respect me, and I want you to do what is right. Now, when I think about real giving, how would I take those two things out of the equation? If I want to be one who is a real giver, should I not respect God, who is a giver, but also respect the person who needs the gift? God's not partial. Neither should we be. And in that giving of respect, we do what is right. Sometimes somebody might want something that's not good or it's not right, and I would not then want to give that because it's not right. What does God say? in giving, in real giving, there is respect and there is righteousness. God does not play favorites. Number two, Jesus was a do-gooder. Jesus came as a do-gooder. Notice verse 38. With the Holy Spirit, Jesus came, and with power, he went about doing good. He was a do-gooder. What did he do? He came, number one, preaching peace. Jesus came to this earth to preach peace. In fact, when his birth was announced, the text says, peace to all and goodwill toward all. Jesus came preaching peace. Peace means bringing people together, creating connection. That's what peace is. We needed peace with God because the connection had been broken. And we need peace with each other so that we are connected. And that's what Jesus did. He preached peace in order to create connection. And then I think of the way Paul wrote it in Ephesians chapter 2. And he wrote about this very connection between peace and creating togetherness, starting in verse 14. He himself is our peace. He has broken down the middle wall of separation, having abolished in his flesh the enmity. That is the law of commandments contained in ordinances, so as to create in himself one man from the two, thus making peace. And he might reconcile them both in one body through the cross, putting to death the enmity. And he came and preached peace to you who were afar off and to all who are near. For through him we both have access to the Father by the Lord Jesus Christ. What's he saying? Jesus came and preached peace to the two groups that existed on the planet. God's chosen people, the Jews, and then the Gentiles. And Jesus, by preaching peace, brought them together, because that's what peace is. Peace is bringing people together. But notice then the connection that Peter made with the house of Cornelius. He came preaching peace, and he went about doing good. It's one thing to preach peace. It's another thing to exhibit peace by doing good. By doing good, we make a connection with somebody. By doing good, we reach out and help somebody. By doing good, we create togetherness. I pulled out of the subdivision this morning, and there was a woman standing by the side of the road, and her car was about a 45-degree angle on a hill by a fence next to a farm where somehow it had slid off and over the curb and down. Now, I stopped and I said, "What can I do to help you?" She said, "We're good. Tow truck is on the way." But you know the story that Jesus told about two who saw somebody in trouble and they just kept right on going. The Samaritan offered to help. He created togetherness. Now, she didn't need my help at the moment, but it would also not be good simply to drive by. You see, preaching peace talks about being together. Doing good creates togetherness. And then Peter would say later, when he wrote his epistle, and probably was referencing this particular passage when he made the statement, "He who would love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it." Do you think Peter was thinking about Cornelius when he was writing that letter? Because over here with Cornelius, he connected the preaching of peace with doing good. And in his letter, he said, we should have peace and do good. If we are going to have real giving as a part of our lives, we must understand and accept that it is based on the foundation of peace that brings people together. And I want to be a giver who causes togetherness. That's what real giving is all about. Now I ask you, are you a do-gooder? I don't mean a goody two-shoes, as people might use the term. I'm asking, are you a do-gooder? If you are a do-gooder, then you are a real giver. But before we answer the question, before I just simply say, well, yes, I'm doing good, I need to find out what that means. Now, you've probably heard many times in a religious concept the idea that someone might say, well, I know I'm okay because I do good to my neighbors and I'm a nice person. Well, glad to hear it. What does God say about do-gooders? What does God say in defining what real giving is all about? Well, let's listen to what God says. He says, number one, if you're a do-gooder and if you are really a giver, you will include your enemies in the giving. In Exodus 23, God had said to his people in verses 2 and 3 something very interesting. If you find your enemy's donkey, you will surely return it to him. Even the one who hates you. If you see his donkey lying under a burden, meaning he's fallen down, you might not want to help, but you surely shall help. Even God's people were told, you do good to your enemies. And Jesus made that a part of his mantra for us. When he said the same thing, you love your enemies, you do good to them. If you're a do-gooder, you're really giving, then you will include your enemies in that list. Number two, but you will especially be thinking of your brethren. As we have opportunity, let us do good to all, but especially to the household of faith. Now, not God. God is not now saying we should be partial and love our brethren, but not love anybody else. He's not saying that. But he is saying this is what's natural and this is what's normal. Aren't you and your family going to take care of your children and your family first and then help others? Isn't that what God tells us to do? There is an order, not because one is better, but just a natural order. That's what God does. If you're a do-gooder, if you're really giving, you will hold your brethren in high esteem, especially to help them. Number 3, real giving is about sharing. That's what it is. Real giving says, here is something that I have and you need. I'm going to share. And because I have needs that you can share with me. That's what real giving is. It is sharing. So Paul told the rich in 1 Timothy 6, verse 18, be rich in good works and do good and share. The Hebrew writer in chapter 13 and verse 16 said the same thing, that we should share. That's what giving is. It is sharing. What does sharing do? Sharing creates equality. Think about it this way. In that moment of giving, in that moment, you have created an equality that didn't exist before you gave. That doesn't mean that all the problems of life have been healed. It just means in that moment, you created an equality. Because you took from something that was yours and gave it to someone in need who didn't have it. And that's what sharing is. Number 4, if you're a do-gooder and you really give, then you know that by doing what is good, you put to silence the ignorance of foolish men. In 1 Peter chapter 2, Peter was writing about their relationship to the government. And in that middle of that context, he said, by doing good, meaning you do what is right, and the foolishness, even of those in charge, will be revealed. Do what is right. That's one of the words that describe God's giving. The other one was respect. And Peter said, you respect the government, but you do what is right. And in doing that, you put to silence ignorance. But finally, number 5, if you're a do-gooder, and if you're really giving, then you're going to give, you're going to do good, even if it causes you to suffer. 1 Peter chapter 3. Peter said that very concept. It's better to suffer for doing good than for doing evil. In other words, there will be times when you practice being good and real giving, and you suffer for it. But that's what makes you a real giver. Didn't Jesus do that? He went about doing good, and they killed him. Real giving. Real giving says, like God, I am not going to play favorites. And I'm going to create peace in the moment, creating togetherness as I do good. And I'll make sure that my enemies are included, that I'm really going to take care of the household of faith. I'm going to share from what I have to those who don't. And I will help put ignorance to bed. But if not, I'll do it anyway, even if I have to suffer. Now that is real giving. God really gave. He really gave to us. Are we giving back to Him? Think about it this way. It may not be hard for you to go next door to a neighbor who is in need of something and help. But how much are people willing to put their lives on hold for God? I'm going to give up and let God take charge. If you're still outside of Jesus Christ after all that He has given, why? Why would you not honor His do-good mentality by giving yourself back to Him and let Him control? That's our biggest problem. That's our biggest temptation. That's what we fight. I get it. But let us be reminded that today, God did good, and He wants us to give back to Him of the good that we have. It begins when you submit to the Lord in baptism, washing away that previous life to start a new one, and then living in a way that honors Him. Maybe you need our help. Maybe God's ready to take you as always, and you're ready to let Him. Will you come as we stand and sing if you need?
We hope that you enjoyed today's broadcast, brought to you by the Richmond Church of Christ. We are located at 1500 Lancaster Road in Richmond, Kentucky. We meet at 9 a.m. each Sunday morning for Bible class, followed by our morning worship service held at 10 a.m. Our Sunday evening service is held at 6 p.m. Our midweek Bible study is held on Wednesday at 7 p.m. We have Bible classes available for all ages on Sunday mornings and Wednesday evenings. If you are in the area, we would love to have you as our honored guest. If you're looking for a home church, we would love to make you part of our family here in Richmond. We hope this has been a blessing to you and pray that you have been strengthened and encouraged. Have a blessed day.